everyone. Today I have Diesel here with me, and finally you're getting to see him in a video. Today's video is just basically going to be all about him, and if you see him like staring that way or that way, it's because the cats are like taunting him. And I'm trying to keep him staying here. Don't know how long it'll last, but usually he calms down and just falls asleep. So anyways, I guess I'll just start from the very beginning and work my way to now. So Diesel was born on August 3rd of this year, which means he's 4 months old today, actually, when I'm filming this. And he is 3/4 Australian Shepherd and 1/4 German Shepherd. So his colors come from the Australian Shepherd side, obviously. But it's called Blue Morel. The type of color with tan is the colors that he has, and he has blue eyes. So we got him at 7 weeks old. I believe it was on the exact day of 7 weeks. So it was a week sooner than 8 weeks, but he was weaned from his mother, so that was good. So like I said in my previous video of my life update, we saw an ad on Facebook of these puppies, and they were $500. They were obviously not purebred. And I just saw it on Facebook, and I saw his picture, which I'll post now, but I just instantly thought like he was meant to be ours. So I had messaged the owner that night. When I saw it, I talked to Kyle about it, and we scheduled to see him the next day. We had scheduled to go see him at like 5 o'clock at night. So we drove there. It was like an hour drive to get to where he was. And we got there. The mother was playing with all the puppies outside, and the dad was inside, I believe, at that point. But they were just also playful. The mother came up to us right away, which was really nice. She was such a sweetheart, the mother. And the puppies were all so cute. And it was like, am I choosing the right one? Like, I don't know if I want even him now. They're all so cute. So we asked all of our questions that we wanted to ask. I had like a huge list of what you're technically supposed to ask the breeder about health questions and just like questions about him specifically. So I asked all my questions. The owner answered them fairly well, I thought, and we took a moment, Kyle and I, and we went and sat in the truck to talk about it. And we kind of knew at that point, like, yeah, we were gonna get it, but we still wanted to talk about it and make sure that that's what we wanted, because like I said in my life update as well, we weren't quite ready for a dog. It was just one of those spur of the moment things that had come up, and we didn't really want to pass it up. So anyways, we had decided that we wanted to take him, so we got out of the truck and we went and told the owner that we would like to take him, if they were comfortable with us taking him. Because we didn't want them to feel like we weren't able to take him. So obviously they felt comfortable that we were going to take him, and we exchanged the money for him, and we took him like right then and there, which was crazy. It all happened so fast within a matter of 2 days. Anyways, when we got him in the truck, because he was just like a little baby at that point, we got him in the truck, and I kind of started crying because I had just taken him from his mother, and I didn't like that feeling of taking him away from his family, but I knew in my heart that he'd be going to a good home. So as soon as we were done there, we didn't tell anyone that we got him, and we went to Walmart and Pet Value, got the type of food that he was currently on so that we could continue him on that. We got him a dog bed, we got him a couple toys, a collar, and a leash, and a small bowl set. So it took us, I think, at least a couple of hours to get everything we needed, before we could even come home with him. And of course my parents were watching the kids, and they had said to us before we left, "You do realize you're coming home with a dog, right?" And it's like, I don't know, like, because I wanted to make sure that the breeder had answered all my questions correctly, and like I felt like they were coming from a good home in the first place. So I wasn't too sure. I wanted to make sure that he was coming from a good home, and I did feel like he was. So we brought him home. I think it was like 8:30 at night, and we brought him out of the truck, and Damien was standing there, and I don't even think Damien knew what to think, but I know he was happy. And over the next few minutes, he just wouldn't leave Diesel alone, so we had to actually take Damien and like get him away from him, because all Diesel wanted to do was sleep at that point, because he was just a baby. But so yeah, that was good. The first night was really good. He slept on his dog bed. I think he only woke us up like once or twice, which was really good, I thought. And the next couple nights was pretty good. He slept pretty good. Same with the days, he pretty much slept. So I knew, it was funny because over the course of a week or so, I knew that he didn't have enough energy for Damien. Damien had way more energy than him. Basically, Damien wouldn't leave him alone. So I knew we needed to get a crate, and I looked online, and from all the local stores, they were so expensive. They were like $165 or more for a crate for his size when he gets bigger. And I'm like, I don't really want to spend that kind of money. We just spent like $700 by the time we bought him and all his supplies and everything. It was like $700. So I'm like, I don't really want to spend almost another $200 on a crate. So we looked at a buy and sell site, and I just typed in dog crate, and one came up. It was a little smaller than what I wanted, but it was really cheap. And I asked her the measurements, and she ended up telling me the measurements, and they were a little too small for what I wanted. But she had actually told me that she had a bigger one as well, and it was for $65. So I'm like, sure, will you take 60? Just makes it easier to take the money out of the bank, 320s. And she said yeah. So I think I met her like the next day or the day after that. And we did get him a crate, so that he could sleep, and Damien would leave him alone, basically. So that was pretty interesting when we brought the crate home. I just kind of spray painted it. It was in really good condition, but I just spray painted it because it had a few little tiny rust spots. So I did that, and then we brought it in, and of course Damien thought it was like a little fort. But eventually we got to the point where it was just Diesel's crate. And even now, sometimes Damien goes in there, but they're more buddies now, so it's okay. So everything was going good. I bought puppy pads so that we could train him to pee outside and pee on the puppy pad if he needed. So he did, for the first little while, go straight to the puppy pad, and then we were getting to the point where he would like notify us to go outside, and he was pretty much house trained just before the end of October. He was almost house trained, I would say, and I think from that time frame, from when we brought him home to the end of October, it was pretty good. We went camping twice with him. He was such a good dog. Everybody loves his colors, so everybody's so attracted to him. And then, like I said in my life update video, the day after, so Halloween night, we took Diesel and Damien out trick-or-treating. Diesel was very good. He just walked around the town with us, and he was just exhausted by the end of the night. But the next day, it kind of all went downhill, and what had happened was Damien was being really bad that day. He was just being a normal 2-year-old, getting into everything, and he had actually gotten into a box of crayons. Well, he dropped the crayons, and Diesel had eaten some of them. And I knew, like, I tried so hard to get it out of his mouth, first of all, but I knew he had, like, actually swallowed some. So it wasn't till a few hours later, I think that was about 2 o'clock that happened. And I want to say it was around 5 o'clock, Diesel had started throwing up. And he threw up the crayons. He threw up, like, a little plastic piece from a, like, cat ball that I didn't know he got into. And so yeah, he started throwing up, and I thought, okay, it's just crayons, and he threw it up. He should be good, because crayons are no longer toxic anymore. They haven't been for years and years and years. So he kind of threw up a few times, and it was like he wasn't getting better. Normally, when dogs throw up, they get better pretty much right after they throw up. They just need to get it out of their system. And in Diesel's case, he wasn't getting better. He started to foam at the mouth really bad. He just wanted to hide away in his crate. And I let him out, and I thought maybe he would, go pee and then come back in and maybe feel a little bit better. And I went outside, and I couldn't even actually find him, and I thought he had gotten out of the fence somehow. So then we were all outside looking for him, and sure enough, he came out from, like, near the deck area or something, and he just looked horrible. He was getting to the point where he looked so sick, and we brought him inside, and we put him in his crate, and he was getting to the point where he could no longer even stand. We tried giving him water, tried giving him food, to see if he would take it, because normally, if dogs smell food, they'll take it. Water is very important if they're throwing up, so that they don't get dehydrated. So we tried all of those things, and nothing seemed to help. Nothing seemed to work. He just seemed like he got weaker and weaker and weaker. And by this time, I want to say it was like 9 o'clock, 9:30 at night. And we were starting to get pretty worried about him. But yet we still thought, okay, it's just crayons. He'll get over it, So my parents had actually gone home, because they were here for dinner for some reason. I don't know why, but my parents went home, and Damien was put down to bed, and he was in his crate, and I was trying to get him water because I was reading about what dehydration can do to them, and how to get them to take water if they don't want to drink it themselves. Use a syringe and put it in their cheek and basically tickle their throat to get them to swallow. So I did that, and he was taking water, which was good. He had taken quite a bit of water, but the drool was just so incredible. I mean, his whole crate was like just soaked. His whole neck and feet and everything by that time were soaked. He couldn't stand whatsoever. He had no strength. And then he was in his crate, and I was kind of like petting him, I think, and I was on the phone with my dad, actually, because I had told him, like, I got him to drink water, like, maybe he'll get better, or maybe he just needed some water. And while I was on the phone with him, he was doing this thing where he was, like, shaking his head, and it was almost like he had gotten water in his ears, and he was, like, trying to shake his head like they do. But because he was so weak, his arms were, like, sprawled out like this, his legs the same, and he looked, I can't even explain it, and I didn't get it on film, because I was on FaceTime with my dad, and I thought at that point it was a seizure, but I wasn't sure. I thought he was just shaking his head and he was just too weak, and he looked different because of his weakness. So basically by that point I was like starting to freak out. I'm like, okay, something isn't right. This isn't just crayons. And my parents ended up coming over right away. And we decided to call a vet. Our, like, not closest one, but the one where I took my cats to get neutered, which would technically be, I guess, our vet, but it's not the closest. It's like an hour and 15 minutes from us. They wouldn't even, like, talk to us on the phone and give us, like, any advice. They just basically said, like, bring them in. Like, we'll see you when you get here, basically. So then we called the vet that we have been going to for years, and they advised us over the phone as much as they could, and we all made the decision to bring him in. And at this point, I think it was like 10 o'clock at night. Kyle was just getting off work. I had actually told him to leave, I think it was 10 minutes early, to see if he could get out 10 minutes early, and he did. So he came home, and I think my mom went home, Kyle stayed here with the kids, and me and my dad drove to the vet. And it's about a 45-minute drive, so it wasn't a short jaunt or anything. And Diesel was pretty much good the whole way there. He started to actually look better, so there was hope, I thought, that he just, was getting better. So we got there, they ran a few tests, blood tests, a swab, what else? The vet, I think, just basically looked him over, and they just said, okay, we're going to keep him overnight, and we'll call you in the morning. So we left him there. I think it was probably 11 o'clock by the time we left there, and we came home. We went to bed, and it was 9, I want to say it was like 8:30, quarter to 9 in the morning, and I still hadn't heard from the vet. And I knew they had opened at 8 o'clock, so I'm like, that's kind of weird. Like, normally they would have called us right away, told us, okay, this is what's up with Diesel, or come get him. He was good all night. So, I can't remember if I called them or if they called me, but I think it was like quarter to 9 in the morning, and I was talking to the vet, and she said that he had a really rough night, that he had started having seizures, and that basically she had already talked to someone in Toronto, which was a neurologist, about what they should do, and they had recommended that he be transferred to Toronto to see this neurologist. So we went down to get him so that we could take him to Toronto, and that first vet bill was just over $1,000. That covered x-rays, tests, blood work, seizure medication, IVs and IV fluids, and that was because of night care as well. I think that's pretty much the majority of the stuff that's covered. Anyway, so that was just over $1,000 just for that night. And we went and got him, and at that point he was sedated. Oh, and that was the other thing that was included, was sedation. So he was sedated when we got there. He looked pretty rough. His tongue was hanging out of his mouth. And he just looked really groggy, and again, no strength. So I paid for him, and we took him for another like 3 hours or whatever length of time it is to get to Toronto. And on the way there, he ended up having a seizure. I think it was about 5 minutes long. And what he did was like a paddling motion. And warning, I'm gonna actually insert the clip of him seizuring. So if you don't want to see that, either just skip ahead. Maybe I can put the time below of when I'll be talking again. But yeah, so if you don't want to see this seizure, then just skip ahead. But I will insert a clip of that. And so this is what he was doing.
I want them to be able to see what he's doing.
Oh, Diesel, come on, baby. Aww. It's okay. Baby, I'm sorry. It's okay, come on. I got you, Diesel. I got you. Diesel, Diesel, Diesel. He was whining, and I mean, he was whining for the whole time that we were driving, and it was so sad. And when he was having the seizure, we were deciding on going to a closer vet, the nearest one we could find, and just putting him down, because it was so heartbreaking to see and to not know the outcome as it is. We were just going to go and put him down. So instead of doing that, I had called my vet that we took him to and said, what do you recommend we do? Do we go to a nearest, vet and put him down or we get him seizure medications, or what do we do? So she said push on. She doesn't think that, his life is over yet. So just push on and get there. And that's what we did. So we had gotten to Toronto, and he actually started seizuring when I got him out of the truck, and there was a vet assistant outside with a dog, and she had seen that he was seizuring, so she opened the door for me, and I took him right in, and someone had running out and just grabbed him from me and took him to the back. Hi, Diesel. So I knew he was in good hands. It wasn't like I hadn't gone through seizures before or anything. And my dad was just parking the truck. So we waited probably, I want to say like 15-20 minutes. They obviously needed to get some seizure meds into him, and his IV started back up. I think he lost his one IV because of the seizuring in the truck. So they restarted an IV and got him on fluids. And then the neurologist took us into a room and basically said, this is what's going on right now. This is what we're doing. So these are the types of things that it could be. Number one, could be a toxin. Number two, could be... what was the name of it? Oh, I can't remember the name. Or it could be a neurological condition. He had given us 3 different options to do an MRI to see if there was anything different in his brain, and that would basically tell us right away what was going on, if there was anything abnormal about him. That would also be including with care for the next couple days, and basically deciding from then on what we do with Diesel. That was the first option, and that was, I want to say $5,600, and that was an if. Like, that was not even sure if we would get an answer, because if there was nothing neurological wrong with him, we still wouldn't have an answer, and we wouldn't have gotten anywhere, really. The second option was just doing the MRI with really no care, not treating him for anything, just an MRI right away to see if there was anything. Again, we may not have an answer, and at that point, he wouldn't have been treated. That, I believe, was $3,700, I want to say. I think that was it. And the last option, or the lowest cost option, was treating Diesel for the next 2 to 3 days, putting him on seizure medications, trying to flush out his system, treating him for different things that we might think it is, and just basically giving him 48 hours from the time that everything happened and see if he gets better. So it was a hard decision. I think it was one of the hardest decisions we've had to ever make, and that was because money was involved. The last option was still $2,600, so either way we would have spent $3,600 and up. So it was a hard decision because do we put the dog down now after already spending $1,000, and he's only 3 months old? He has maybe 15 years left of his life. So I think that's why it was so hard, was because money was involved. We didn't have the extra money saved. It would have to come off of our line of credit, and we didn't know if we wanted to do that, especially not knowing what the outcome was going to be. We could spend the $3,600, and in 48 hours or 24 hours at that point, he could still be the same way, and we would just have to put him down anyways. So it was a difficult decision. We talked about it for a while. We left the office, and we just went and sat outside, and we all talked about it as a family, even my mom and dad, and we decided to go with the first option, the lowest cost option. And it was difficult because we weren't going to know what was going on with him, and we may never know. So the choice was to treat him for everything, see if he gets better. If he doesn't after 24 hours, then put him down. So we made that decision, and from that point we had to put a deposit of at least half, which was $1,300. I think they ended up making me put down like 15 or something like that. And we had left him there. We drove home, and the next day was brutal. Well, that night even. The doctor had called me first thing in the morning, told me that he was still seizuring, that they had to up his medication, and basically, what do? We push on until the 48-hour mark, or, stop doing what we're doing. Or we still had the option of doing the MRI. So we just said, okay, let's push on, see how he does. By this time, we were losing quite a bit of hope. We didn't think he was going to come back from it. And so the 48-hour mark would have been 5 o'clock at night. So we said, okay, let's just wait till 5 o'clock, see how he does, and go from there. So the doctor had called me pretty much 2 minutes before 5 or just after 5, I can't remember. And he told me he had stopped having seizures, which within like the last hour or so, which was crazy. And what do we do from here? Because at that point, when we talked in the morning, we were all preparing for the worst. We were all preparing at 5 o'clock that we were going to say, okay, just put him down. And that would have actually made our lives a lot easier in a sense. We wouldn't have to think about it anymore. We wouldn't have to decide anything anymore. So at 5 o'clock when he said he's done having seizures, then it's like, okay, well, now what do we do? He's still not better, but he's stopped having seizures. He's on seizure medications, but he's stopped having seizures. So what we had planned to do was wait another 24 hours to see if he continues to not have any seizures and if he ends up coming to amend or becoming better. So we waited overnight again, and he called me first thing in the morning when he got there and said that he had had a good night, and he was looking better, which was like a miracle to all of us. And he said that we would be able to pick him up. I think it was either that night or the morning after, and he still wasn't quite better by 5 o'clock that night. So we just said, you know, keep him there. We'd rather him there, get better, and then if things are good overnight, we'll come get him in the morning. So that's actually what happened. We got a call in the morning, said that he was good and he was ready to go home if we wanted. The doctor knew that we had dealt with Michaela before, so we're quite familiar with seizures. And he felt comfortable enough for us to take him home on seizure medications and just basically hope that he gets better. So we went and picked him up that morning. I think it was a Friday morning, I'm not sure, but we picked him up that morning. I had to pay the extra amount, which was another $1,500 or something like that. And when they brought him to us, he had a cone around his head. He was still pretty sedated, couldn't stand or walk, barely holding his head up. So the doctor talked to us for a little bit, explained what we needed to do, what to do if, you know, certain things happened, to feed him as normal. They had put him on wet food because it's easier to eat. There was just a few questions, I can't remember what they were, but we had a few questions for the doctor, and we basically just took him from then. So we took him outside, and there's a little grass area when you go outside, and we let him sit down to see if maybe he could go pee before we left. So he couldn't stand, and it was so sad to watch. But he was already trying to stand, which was good signs. And he had a bandage on his arm from the IV, and they just basically said take it off in a half hour. It was just a bandage to stop the bleeding. So we got him in the truck, and he started to perk up. And it was like, okay, well, I can't hold you all the way home, because it was a long drive home. We stopped for something to eat, put him in his crate, which was really small. It's actually a cat crate. It's really small, so it helped him stay confined without banging his head, because he was so, he didn't have enough strength yet to even hold his head, so he was like flopping his head around. So he stayed in his crate all the way home, which was good. I think he ended up falling asleep. We brought him in, and he was still very weak. We took him outside when we got home to see if he would go pee, and he like stood up a few times and like tried to take some steps, which was like amazing, because we had seen progress even from when we left the hospital to when we got him home. So over the next like 3 or 4 days, I want to say, he just got better and better at walking, and he hated the wet food and taking his medication at first, but eventually he just we switched him to kibble again, and he takes his medication no problem. Yeah, after 4 days or so, he was back up running basically himself, but the downside is we still don't know what it was. It still could be a toxin. It still could be a neurological issue. So we may never know, but we have kind of come to the conclusion ourselves that it was the day after Halloween. Damien did have a lot of chocolate that day. We think maybe Damien gave him some chocolate, and that's what it was, because he was still so small. Not a lot of chocolate, I think, can harm a dog. We looked up some symptoms of dogs having chocolate, and all his symptoms were on there. We have a feeling that's what it was. So I actually just called the doctor a few days ago and asked what he thought about it, and he said it's a it's a possibility that that's what could have happened. Because originally we thought maybe he got into a mushroom outside or something. I had asked him if we could start weaning his medication, because the plan was originally to have him on seizure medications for 6 months, and then at the 6-month mark we would try and wean him and see if he has seizures. If he has seizures, then he probably has a neurological condition, and he would need to be on seizure medication for the rest of his life, or he wouldn't have seizures and it probably was a toxin. So we felt comfortable enough to ask the doctor if we could start weaning his medication now and seeing if it was just chocolate, because there's no sense in him being on medication for 6 months when he doesn't need to be if it was a toxin. So the doctor said he was comfortable with that, and we just started the weaning process today, I believe. So he will be on the medication for at least 9 weeks still. It takes quite a long time to wean him off. So he's on phenobarbital. He was getting 3/4 of a pill, which is 30 milligrams, and now he's down to a half a pill, which would be 15 milligrams twice a day. So he will go from a half a pill twice a day to a 1/4 pill twice a day, and then a 1/4 of a pill once a day to nothing. That is if he makes it without seizures. So we are hoping that everything goes good, that it was chocolate, and we've been super careful about what he can get into, and what Damien is doing around him. We've tried so hard to keep them separate at times when we can't watch them. We've put up gates now to separate Diesel and Damien at times when we're not together. When we're eating, he can't be in the kitchen. Just things like that can prevent anything from happening again. Because if it was chocolate, we know that there's other types of foods that dogs can't have. So we want to make sure that he's not getting anything that he shouldn't have. He can still have his own treats and his kibble, and he's doing very well. He's growing like a weed. He's going to be pretty big, I think. He's more on the German Shepherd side, I think, for size and his hair type. He's got like short, straight hair as of right now. On his chest area is more of the Australian Shepherd fur. It's more long. I was hoping that he was going to be long-haired, and it could still change. But I think he's going to be more of a short-haired, not short-haired, but not long-haired. He's got the floppy ears, which I love. And yeah, he just keeps growing, and he is obviously a fighter. Apparently all my kids are. But I think that is all for his life update. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments below, and I will be sure to answer them either in a video or down below. And I hope you all enjoyed this video. If you did, give it a thumbs up, and please subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and I will see you in my next video. Bye guys.